Thank you for joining us. As we gather here this evening, I'd like to take a moment to honor one of our own, Blake Elliott. Blake was an exceptional student, a loyal friend to many, and a gifted soccer player whose talent and determination were recently recognized when she was named the Player of the Year by the Aegis just last week. She brought an incredible energy and spirit to C. Milton Wright High School. Her presence lit up the classroom, it lit up the field, and it lit up the lives of everyone who had the privilege of knowing her. Blake's kindness, her courage, and talent left a lasting impression on not just the school, but on our entire community. And her loss is felt deeply by all of us. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember Blake Elliott and to reflect on the light that she brought into all of our lives. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start this evening, before we get into public comment, with something a bit different. We're going to start with a special recognition of the Harford County High Schools, North Harford High School's Student Envirothon Team State Championship competitive win. I'd like to welcome up to the dais Mr. Howard Eakes, Assistant Superintendent of Science, Ms. Laura O'Leary, the coach, and Ms. Samantha Hawk, one of the members of the North Harford Envirothon team. Welcome, come on up. I'd also like to welcome our County Executive Bob Castley, who will be presenting a proclamation to the entire team. Yep, come on up front.
Sure. So this team has done fantastic for years now, and so we're not surprised to see the North Harford Envirothon team making great achievements. But this year, they really went above board. That was not only first with the state of Maryland, but they came in second in the international competition, and they were only down by 1 point. So, best in the state, number 2 in the world. That's pretty good. And we've got this is a citation, and it's be it here known to all the sincerest congratulations are offered to North Harford High School's 2025 Envirothon team with Laura O'Leary as the advisor, Frank De Lucia and Jacob Gestel, Jonathan Van Bruskik, right? Buskirk, all right. Ryan Lehman and Samantha Hawk. Everybody else was seniors. They're gone. Samantha's the lone surviving Hawk. And so we're delighted that you could come here representing everyone. I've got this, and also we've got some coins for all of you as well. So and if you've got any of the other ones out there, I'm going to give you the rest of those in case they stop by to visit you. You'll have it. So we'll do we can gather around. Let you guys bring that in there. Thank you for so many years.
Thank you. I would really like to thank Harford County Public Schools and Harford Soil Conservation District for sponsoring our very expensive trip to Alberta, Canada. I think that it was mostly Maryland Envirothon, but I think Harford County also kicks in. It was such an amazing trip and journey, to Canada, bringing my favorite nature nerds into the Rocky Mountains, where they teared up, just like their coach, being able to spend time with them like that. I want to thank Andrew League, who couldn't be here tonight. He has Envirothon as one of his many other duties as assigned, and Envirothon's a big one. He accompanied me, and he was a great other chaperone as well for my students. And I can't even tell you what an amazing group of students I have, and even still this year, can't wait to compete against my wonderful colleagues, because getting past Harford County is the biggest hurdle, because it's a very competitive county. And thanks for all of the help, Mr. Eakes and Harford Soil Conservation District.
Great.
Thanks.
You guys want to say anything? No? Okay. One more round of applause. Amazing job. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to public comments. If we could please read this evening's rules of order.
Good evening. I'm DJ Ravage, Regional Coordinator for the Office of Safety and Security. Thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education business meeting. In keeping with the business purpose of the meeting, I would like to share updated practices that will be enforced this evening and for all future board meetings. During the business meeting, all attendees are reminded to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Grandstanding, which includes applause, audible commentary, excessive gestures, standing ovations, and similar distracting behaviors, is not permitted. Likewise, threatening words, gestures, or behaviors are not permitted. The rules of order require commenters to refrain from identifying individuals who are members of the public and do not sit on the board. Comments should be directed to the board, and it is not acceptable to address or identify members of the public by name. In the context of a board business meeting, the public includes school staff other than the superintendent. Additionally, disparaging comments, personal attacks, and inflammatory remarks about specific schools, personnel, any person or group are not permitted. We appreciate your understanding and are committed to ensuring a respectful and constructive dialogue in our meetings. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further concerns or need additional support. Should an attendee engage in one of the prohibited behaviors, thus detracting from the business purpose of this meeting, the attendee will receive a warning to immediately cease the prohibited behavior. If the attendee does not cease the prohibited behavior, the attendee will be escorted from the business meeting by security. I'd like to reiterate, commenters are reminded to refrain from identifying individuals who are members of the public and do not sit on the board. This includes HCPS students and staff. We appreciate your respectful attendance and participation and look forward to a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We've allotted 60 minutes for public comment this evening, and based on the number of commenters, I believe that comes to 2 minutes per speaker, regardless if you're a group or you're an individual. Please begin public comment.
Dr. Poyen, this evening we have 26 in-person speakers and 2 virtual. We will begin with Charlene Hopt, followed by Neil Thompson and Tarsila Thompson.
Good evening. I'm Charlene Haupt, and I live in Bel Air. I have 2 points. First point, I am and always will be against book bans and censorship in a supposedly free society. Second point, I received a letter from Johns Hopkins stating ongoing negotiations with United Healthcare. We put in money regularly for that healthcare provider. The person I contacted at the Health and Benefits Department told me Hopkins had agreed to accept patients on an out-of-network status. I've heard nothing since except for a news piece on TV where Hopkins had severed their connections with United Healthcare. What does that mean for me and all those who have it as their answer for all health care due to lack of transparency in covering patients that would benefit their for-profit status and not the care needed for each and every patient? Why is United Healthcare denying the claims for the exact health care given for years and covered with no notice of any unacceptable claims? I've had over 20 years of full coverage, and now the same doctors and same treatments denied and on appeal partially paid out. Do we still pay out of pocket for less care? Is the fact we are gradually in more need of care as we age the reason? Claims for treatment are now denied. More money for their for-profit status, and the fact that many of us are aging and at risk. Would it cost them more and they decide to deny claims that can extend our lives in good health? And why aren't we in the loop? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Neil Thompson. First of all, I want to thank the board for holding a moment of silence regarding the recent tragic accident. We appreciate you doing that, and send prayers to the family and friends. I'm also here to talk about the board's actions at the June 26 hearing at which you banned the book Flamer. An article in the September 10 Baltimore issue of Baltimore Banner issue, President Poynton said board members did not have the option to remove the book only from middle school libraries. Tonight, I'm asking board members during board comments to tell us what policy or procedure caused you to feel you could not opt to simply make Flamer available only for high school students and not for middle school students. I could find nothing that restricted your options, but maybe you can enlighten us on that. If you can't answer that question tonight, I ask that you provide an answer at the upcoming listening session on September 30th. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tarcy Thompson, and I'm representing Together We Will. Thank you for tonight's moment of silence. It was an important reminder of our unity as our hearts and prayers go out to the families and school community. Dr. Poynton, I know you've asked us in the past to stay with agenda items during our public comment. I'd like to address something that I believe needed to be included on recent agenda regarding the June 26th hearing, the hearing that led to the removal of a book from HCPS libraries. According to District Appeals and Hearings Procedure, in quotes, the final action of the board shall be taken publicly at a board meeting following the hearing, end of quote. And no exceptions are given in that procedure. Because it's the action, in this case a vote, that needs to be taken publicly, from what I read, that vote needed to be held at the July 21st BOE meeting in front of all of us. It's possible you were just doing things the way they've always been done, but it doesn't line up with the procedure developed by HCPS. Please understand that this is where your decision to remove Flamer feels less than transparent. The final action was held during the closed hearing rather than here at a public meeting. I would appreciate board members' response to this conflict with the procedure, either tonight in your comment period or at the September 30 listening session. Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Bauer, followed by William Martino and Candace Kammerer.
Good evening. I'm David Bauer. We have another fine evening to discuss the book Flamer, why banning it was a mistake, and why, yes, the term ban is correct. And then Dr. Poynton went and made a new mistake. Dr. Poynton's open letter about responses to the killing of a well-known person in Utah was inappropriate for multiple reasons. First, he was stepping into a situation that has been not just politicized, but weaponized. Dr. Poynton, you dragged the board and the school system into this situation that has national conservative figures criticizing the head of the FCC and White House for authoritarian attacks on the First Amendment. It was also stepping into an internal discipline issue. That is the administration's job. The board handbook is very clear that specific issues or complaints must first be addressed by the superintendent and his staff. Lastly, Dr. Poynton's letter clearly demonstrates that he does not understand the purpose of the board officer positions. The letter says, quote, "I have directed the administration," end quote. The board officers do not have that authority. Only the board as a whole entity does. The handbook is also very clear that the board president is, quote, "spokesperson for the whole board," end quote. Dr. Poynton, you have violated that directive repeatedly, acting as a spokesperson for yourself in your own position. The actual duties for a president listed in the handbook fall into two categories: managing the board as an entity and its meetings, and acting as a communications channel for the whole board. Thank you.
Good evening. The book of Acts tells us that Stephen was falsely accused of breaking the laws of Moses and was on trial before the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin included 70 Pharisees and Sadducees, along with the high priest Caiaphas. All of the Sanhedrin were the most educated men on Old Testament writings in the entire Roman Empire. Their combined force and intellect had to be overwhelming to this uneducated follower of Christ. However, during the trial, Stephen delivers a powerful testimony of wisdom, Jewish history, and the signs that were fulfilled by the Messiah. This uneducated man, Stephen, managed to outfox the entire assembly of religious titans on their own Torah and Old Testament. The Sanhedrin were so embarrassed that they had Stephen stoned to death. The religious elite had drifted severely off course and were far from their destination. Stephen was trying to pull them back on the correct path. America's educational system had drifted a long way off course and desperately needs another Stephen to get them properly aligned. Then God sent Charlie Kirk. The Lord sent Charlie to be a voice for America's youth. This high school self-educated leader was bringing the gospel to a generation that needed it the most. Charlie was single-handedly challenging the academic elites and the most prestigious universities that their ideas were wrong and damaging to the students. Charlie was winning and he was killed for it. Parents in this board need to follow Charlie's example and stop bad ideas and radical activism being taught to the pupils of this county. Regardless of what Comar, the teachers union, the state mandates, be a Charlie and push back and protect our children from damaging activist material. We are.
Good evening. I am Candace Kammerer, and I was a scientist, teacher, and administrator for 47 years. It was my privilege, and I shouldn't say was a scientist, I'm still a science geek. I read Flamer, and based on the posted evaluation criteria, I don't understand why it was removed from all public school libraries. And I also watched the videos of the meeting, and I noticed a few things. All of my fellow citizens want the very best for our school children, but we have differing perspectives. And in my experience, communities that listen to and respect differences are much more vibrant. I also saw that the current reconsideration process has flaws. The work of the 9 committee members and the superintendent seemed to be a waste of time. All that mattered was the board's vote in a closed session. At the listening session on September 30th, I hope to hear more about the conclusions of the committee and the board differed so much. And I also hope to hear lots of ideas on how the overall process can be improved to promote win-win outcomes that respect and benefit everyone. Thank you.
Next, we have Megan Fitzgerald, Maureen Wessner, and Ellen Buskin.
Good evening. First off, please reinstate the book Flamer. And I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of someone that I am proud and humbled to call a friend, and that's Ronald Wooden, the current. Can I still speak?
Yeah, just avoid identifying.
I won't say it anymore.
Anyone other than.
That's fine. I'm sorry. In any event, I'm here to speak tonight on behalf of someone who's been put on administrative leave.
We can't say that either. It's a personnel issue, not subject to the public. Is there anything else that you can say?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it
Can I
might
give
be.
examples of who he is?
Well, I think at this point, it might be more appropriate for you to direct your comments to the board in written, not in a public forum.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Fair enough. Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maureen Westner. I'm here because I oppose the banning of books, and I oppose the banning of the book Flamer. Several board members have opposed our use of the word ban and insist that they have merely removed Flamer from library shelves. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the word ban as follows: to prohibit the use, performance, or distribution of, and gives the example, ban a book. So, by prohibiting the distribution of Flamer by Harford County Public School libraries, you have, in fact, banned it. You attempt to soften the language in order to make the removal of Flamer from our libraries sound less suppressive. I ask that you return Flamer to Harford County Schools libraries. Thank you.
I'm Ellen Buskin. What every person who works in the education profession has in common is the belief that you should do your best and what's best for your students. And as a retired educator, that's what I did, what was best for my students. And I feel that this board has heard from many educators that believe that banned books, and especially the book Flamer, is important for the needs of our students as part of their Harford County School Library. It addresses bullying and other topics relevant to Harford County students. And this is a quote from Flamer. "I hate bullies. I don't understand what they get out of it. And I never know what to say in response. Sometimes I think of a comeback hours later. Even then, it's not always the best. I think everyone has struggled with that and could use some advice on that." This current board has ignored all the professionals and the reconsideration committee, and I think they need to revisit this issue. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lucy Buxton, followed by Ann Hartig and Robert Jacobs.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Buxton. I'm here once again this evening to ask the board to reverse its decision to ban Flamer. Bullying is clearly an issue in our schools. I doubt that we can stop it, but we can provide kids with tools to deal with it. Flamer is one such tool. Please follow the recommendations of educational professionals and librarians, reinstate Flamer, and institute an open and transparent procedure for evaluating library books destined for school libraries. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Hartig. My comment this evening relates to the volunteer policy noted in the new business section of the current agenda. I applaud the board's efforts to formalize the volunteer policy. A policy that all system members must follow discourages the use of personal beliefs and values in decisions which impact our public school students. My first suggestion involves the definition section, letter C, community partners. Please consider changing the language from community partners may have a memorandum of understanding on file to they must have a memorandum of understanding. Businesses and organizations have more participants and resources to provide support, which means there is a greater opportunity for misunderstanding and misdirection. A memorandum of understanding can improve the likelihood people understand their roles and responsibilities and that directives will be followed. The second change, Roman numeral 4, item B, volunteer guidelines. Consider adding local, state, and federal requirements. The phrase would read, all volunteer activities will align with the district goals, safety standards, and local, state, and federal requirements for public school education. Doing this ensures the intent of the HCPS to hold volunteers and organizations accountable to all educationally related statutes. Finally, Section H eligibility discusses the rights to dismiss volunteers who violate established expectations, but it does not delineate how and to whom that process is initiated. It doesn't explain the process an offending individual or organization can expect to be followed in the event of a concerning behavior. It is important for students, staff, parents, and community members to have this information up front should the need arise. Consider adding language to explain this process. Thank you.
You get a copy of that?
Yes, actually, I
Can you just
emailed-
give it to Eric Davis over there? Thank you.
Is there a Robert Jacobs? Our next speakers are Louis Renteria, Delane Lewis, and Cheryl Adams.
Good evening, I'm Louis Renteria. At the beginning of the school year, our 7th grader came home with his new social studies curriculum. My wife noticed right away that it placed a heavy focus on Islam and Muslim history. As veterans and Catholics, this concerned us. We believe religion should be taught at home, in church, or in private schools, not in state-mandated lessons. We requested to opt our son out based on our family values. At first, his teacher was understanding and offered independent study during those lessons, but the next day, his superior told us no. That it was state-mandated and we had no option to opt out. We were told each religion is presented equally and objectively. But when my wife reviewed the materials, that wasn't the case. Christianity was given just a couple short, broad paragraphs. Islam, on the other hand, was covered in 4 full pages of detailed descriptions, what Muslims believe, how they pray, when they pray. When she asked why, she was told, we assume everyone already knows about Christianity. The assumption is wrong, and it shows that curriculum is not treating all religions equally. Excuse me. We also found that difficult parts of Islamic history like conquest, violence, and persecution were intentionally left out while a very idealized version was presented. That is not objective education. Adding to this concern, we later learned that Maryland Department of Education changed its curriculum this past July after pressure from the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. This is the controversial organization that several states have cut ties with because of its connections to extremist groups. Yet Maryland allowed them to influence what our children are taught. Because of this, we made the decision to homeschool our son, but this should not be the only option for families. I urge this board to reconsider this curriculum and present religion in a biased way, deny parents the right to opt out, and allow outside organizations to influence what our children are taught. The responsibility of this board is to ensure education, not indoctrination. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Delane Lewis. I want to express my deep sorrow at the death of Blake Elliott. This is an unbearable loss. I am sending prayers for the full recovery of the other student involved. We are here today and have been coming because we believe that we share a belief in the principles that lie at the very heart of our democracy, freedom of expression and free speech. Throughout history, books have been the very foundation of our freedom to think critically, to question, and to imagine. But we are seeing books like Flamer deemed too controversial, too offensive, or too dangerous for readers. The idea that certain ideas or narratives should be censored in the name of protecting others is not only misguided, but a direct threat to our fundamental rights. Using words like purity when speaking of our students is frankly offensive. You're treading in dangerous waters with this language, and the impact here is the isolation and bullying of our LGBTQIA+ students. When a small group of individuals believe they know better than the rest of us and decides for us which ideas or speech are acceptable and which are not, history has shown time and again that that is not the way forward. Those that seek to silence others often do so because they fear what those voices might reveal. They fear new ways of thinking, new ideas that might challenge their power, their privilege, or their worldview. To ban a book or speech is to close off a dialogue, to deny people the opportunity to explore perspectives beyond their own. Whether the book challenges social norms, speaks to uncomfortable truths, or advocates for marginalized voices, banning these books is a form of intellectual oppression. It tells individuals, especially young people, that their curiosity is dangerous and that their pursuit of knowledge should be controlled. So let us stand together in defense of the freedom to read, the freedom to think, and the freedom to speak. Let us reject the idea that some voices are too dangerous to hear and reaffirm that the best way to counter bad ideas is not by banning them, but confronting them with better ones.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Adams. I would like to address two things this evening. The first is a response to the suggestion in a previous meeting that our comments would be better served either through email or the listening sessions. And I just want to push back on that a little bit because I'd like to come and make public comment because I'm not only just addressing you all, but I also want to make sure that the students, staff, and the public know that they have support and that I'm speaking on behalf of some of them as well. So I want them to be able to hear that, and I want it to be able to be recorded. The second thing I would like to address is a statement made by a member of the board at the last meeting and the meeting before, I think, regarding or inferring that the book Flamer had a how-to guide for dying by suicide. I spoke with my college-age child, who was a graduate of HCPS, about the removal of this book and that thought. And his response was, do they think that kids in middle and high school don't already know about suicide or think about it? They know about as early as elementary school, and most kids already know exactly how to do it. So trying to pretend bad words or uncomfortable topics don't exist is unhealthy. What is healthy is bringing them out into the open and talking about them with kids. Kids who have suicidal ideation find great relief in being able to acknowledge that they have had them. It's an opening to start talking about them and maybe get them help and avoid a bad outcome. In fact, this book shows a positive outcome. My child said this book is definitely appropriate for middle and high schoolers. Censorship diminishes the educational experience our children have and limits their worldview, making them less capable once they're navigating the world on their own. Please reinstate the book Flamer, revisit your process for the book review. You're not the experts and you do not have the final say on any book.
Thank you.
And stop trying to silence the public by limiting the
Thank
number
you.
of people and the amount of time we have to speak.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Faby, followed by James Ramsey and Jan Hirschfeld.
Good evening. On January 20th, 2025, with President Trump's signing of the Executive Order 14168, restoring Title IX protection for girls, young women, and females, reaffirming there are only two genders, male and female. Also in June of 2025, the Supreme Court decision, U.S. versus Scrimeti, upheld the ban on gender-affirming care for minors. It's time Hartford Community HCPS Board, school psychologists revisit the current position policy and get ahead of future changes to Maryland law and stop all gender transition consulting or guidance. For the parents of Hartford County, if you're made aware and see this on sports fields, feel free to report it to the website ndei.ed.gov. Very simple one-page form to fill out. In September of 2023, Melissa Hahn from District D asked the board to remove the following books in an effort to protect the students in her district and in Hartford County. Genderqueer, Flamer, which you can get at Amazon or Hartford County libraries, Lawn Boy, All Boys Aren't Blue, A is for Activist, and Let's Talk About It. Please consider allowing board members to submit books for review on behalf of their constituents in an effort to eliminate unforeseen ramifications and bullying. Thank you to President Boynton for the curriculum transparency upgrades, including the importance of parent-teacher conferences. Your open letter to educators and staff of HCPS, a timely reminder of the firm stance of responsible use and procedure. I'll stop right there. Thank you.
All right. I'm James Ramsey. Last time I was here, I criticized the board president's judgment on Flamer. This time I want to bring to your attention that another member of the board had outright denounced Flamer as, I kid you not, porn. I'm not going to waste time pointing out all the ways in which that makes zero sense. Instead, I quote from The Princess Bride. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Reinstate Flamer in the school libraries. Thank you.
My name is Jan Hirschfeld. I'm from Aberdeen. And I'm here again to ask the board to reinstate Flamer. I oppose the banning of Flamer, and I object to the way the ban was done. Book banning threatens our First Amendment rights, and it disrespects, in this case, those who served on the Reconsideration Committee. It's also a huge disrespect to the districts, the school district's librarians, who are trained and well qualified to choose the appropriate books to fill the school libraries. The board's decision to ban Flamer was never voted on in open session, and it goes against Maryland state law. So no more book banning, please. Put Flamer back on the shelves.
Our next speaker is Tokufa Nwenya, followed by Regina McCarlton and Christina Lanoka.
Good evening, Superintendent. Good evening, President. Good evening, Vice President. Good evening, student member, and the rest of the members of Harford County Board of Education. My name is Mtokofa Ngwenya, and I stand here because I lead an organization that has 2,000 men in this area and has ties specifically to Harford County. I will not use names as stated in the rules, but I will speak to the record about this community member. This person began in this county as a teacher. He invested 9 years in a classroom, ran a 21st century after-school program that kept students safe, learning, and supported. Promoted steadily throughout this county, serving families from Abington all the way to Edgewood. Across every role, this individual built strong culture, supported teachers, moved student learning forward. Why does this matter? Because people with conservative principles understand it's always about, it isn't about rhetoric, it's about driving results. There is responsibility and a respect for process here. This individual is a steady hand and sets clear expectations, backs staff, partners with parents, and is disciplined with time and resources. This person is a committed Christian who serves their church and community, modeling personal responsibility, service above self, and dignity of every child. They show up where it counts, in the classrooms, in the community, and everywhere else. I'm not here to argue any particulars. I ask that you consider taking careful recognition of this testimony and the rest as we preserve accountability and excellence in our community expectations.
Hello, my name is Regina McCartan, and I'm speaking against the ban of Flamers. I moved to Harford County about 49 years ago, so my oldest daughter could attend first grade. And I was very interested in the bad words that people were opposed to, and was very surprised that as a 6-year-old, she came home from school with a very bad word that myself and my husband had to have a discussion with her how it was not appropriate. So from first grade on, I think that students are exposed to words that they should not have. But this book, I find, is a book on bullying. And as a healthcare provider, I take care of teens and young women, and I find that this would be very helpful for the LGBTQT group. So please reinstate this book. Thank you.
Yes, we do need God back in our schools. We are inspired by Charlie Kay, who lost his life for speech. He spoke gospel truth with love to the college students. Know that we love you all, and we pray God's guidance for you, but we will continue to speak truth until our children are being guided to God, not away from him. Thessalonians 4 said, "This is the will of God, your holiness, that you refrain from immorality, for God did not call us to impurity, but to holiness. Therefore, whoever disregards this disregards not a human being, but God, who also gives his Holy Spirit to you." I thank you for removing the book Flamer. As Dr. Poynton pointed out, the book does not meet the book selection standards of HCPS schools. My question then is, how did it get in there? And who put it there? And are the people who choose these types of books still choosing these types of books for our children? If so, what are you doing to stop it? Also, how are you proposing to remove the many other books which do not meet your standards? Many complain that we are banning books. Anyone can buy any of these sexually explicit, pornographic, and gender ideology books at any retail bookstore. However, we as taxpayers and parents should not be forced to buy and give to our children such horrifically evil books. So even if we were aware of every single offensive book on your shelves and in your classrooms and then notified the school to keep our children away from said books, we are still continuing to pay for the rest of the school system's children to be exposed to them. Similar to your forcing your staff, students, and teachers to tell lies about gender, you are forcing the parents to pay for this curriculum and policy. Parents are the experts on their children. Please think about what you are doing to our children. Ask God's guidance and go from there. John 14:6, Jesus said, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." May God bless Blake's family and all of you too.
Our next speaker is Janine Canito, followed by Susie Scott and Fred Durst.
Good evening. I want to make 2 points tonight. One concerns CIP projects, and the other is just kind of a general message to new and existing board members. In terms of CIP, I want to first share my own personal experience. My homeowners association hounded me for 8 years to replace my roof. I couldn't afford it, so I pushed back. I made an adult fiscal decision, and I implore the board to make the same responsible fiscal decisions in terms of those funds that are requested for CIP projects. My second point has to do with recent events. Our country reached a turning point on September 10th with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And make no mistake, the radical left made itself very clear in all its ugliness. And the radical left comes in many different flavors and colors. Sometimes it comes in the form of people attending board meetings in color-coordinated shirts with coordinated statements on them.
calm down. I actually didn't hear what you said, but you know the rules of order, so try to stick to them. What'd she say? Your time is up. Sorry.
I'd like to get my time back.
You were interrupted by the crowd. I'll give you 15 seconds. 15.
The goal of the radical left is to manipulate with the changing of definitions of words and phrases. And I encourage the board not to fall for this. And I am so thankful to board.
Yeah, thank you. There was no, sorry, the clock wasn't running, so we were trying to estimate. You could.
Eloquence of his statement.
You.
The role of book banning did not fit
Okay.
what we're talking
You're a little over your time. Thank you.
about.
Appreciate it.
I applaud you
Thank you.
for backing
We got it.
that up. And I also wanted to point out
I'm sorry. You're over your time. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
follow your rules.
Evening, members of the board. Okay, brace yourself for something completely different. I want to extend my sincere thanks to the board this evening. First, to you, Dr. Poynton, for your bold and principled stance in addressing the educators and staff through your recent open letter. Your directness and commitment to maintaining the integrity of Harford County Public Schools is not only necessary, but it's what a true leader should do. In a time when civility and respect are often in short supply, your clear message about the professional obligations of educators is both timely and important. Thank you for holding all staff to the highest standards and ensuring that those entrusted with shaping young minds demonstrate the respect and humanity that we all expect. Your leadership is truly appreciated, and I support your continued efforts to uphold the values that make our community stronger. Next, I want to thank Ms. Hahn for organizing the vigil for Charlie Kirk at Shamrock Park. What a beautiful witness it was. Thank you for going above and beyond to assist the community in this terrible time so that they could come together and mourn and remember an exceptional American. Our community is now being tested by the tragic accident this past week that took a beautiful young Steve Milton Wright student athlete away too soon. Moms for Liberty sends our deepest sympathies to the families of Blake Elliott and for all the families involved in this terrible tragedy. Next, I want to thank Dr. Bolson. Yes, I have something nice to say. You can look up. You referenced the upcoming America 250 celebrations in your comments last meeting, and I'm glad you took the time to include this national commemoration in your remarks. Moms for Liberty is honored to be a part of the coalition that's working on some of the many initiatives planned for America 250, and we're available to assist you and your staff in this endeavor, and we welcome the opportunity. I have more thanks, but I'm running out of time, so to all the members of this board, I appreciate your dedication to fostering a healthy and open dialogue. Thank you.
Members of the board, my name is Fred Durst, and indeed, thank you very much for listening. You're very good listeners, and I want to address the topic that was caused by the board's removal of the book Flamer from the Harford County Public Library System. The first time I appeared before the board, I hadn't read the book, and I invoked the spirit of Dr. Roberti. Dr. Roberti, wonderful man. My brothers and I in the 60s and 70s, he faced a lot of challenges, but he never faced the challenge of a partisan national ideology infecting the workings of a nonpartisan board that should be concentrating on the students' welfare. And if you're concentrating on the students' welfare, you really need to reinstate Flamer, because the book wasn't written for me. The book was written for my godchild. The book was written for people who are different. We need to recognize that there are people who are different, and this needs to be a resource for people. I cried when I read the book. I cried. And I didn't recognize the book that you were telling me I would see, sir. I didn't recognize it. There's no pornography. There's a story of a young man growing up. It's about a middle schooler. How can you take it away from middle schoolers who might be like this young man? I mean, this young man's real-life pen pal lived in Baldwin. This is a real story. He really almost committed suicide because of bullying. People who are in this position need that resource. Please do something. You listen real good, but please resolve this issue in a way that respects people who are different. Thank you.
Next, we have Iris Bauer, followed by Thomas Piddington and Tanya Tayo.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about, sorry, let me start at the beginning. My name is Iris Bauer, and I'm a student at Aberdeen High School. I'm here tonight to talk to you about understanding. Just as one shouldn't ban books without even reading them, any governing body should do its job to understand which it governs. You govern the Harford County Public School System as its Board of Education, but do you understand it? Multiple failed policy attempts say you do not. You talk so much about students being top priority. How well do you think you understand them? Do you listen to the people who interact with students on a daily basis and understand the school system? Can I have all the current or former people who have...
To address the board.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a challenge for all the board members tonight, aside from the student member. In your comment, please share, what sources of information do you use to form your opinions, if not that of the people who work at schools? How do you work to understand the school system, not just oversee it? Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I'm Tom Piddington, and first of all, once again, thank you for what you've done just to, in effort to try to protect the purity of our children. And I realize that Flamer is not the worst of the books, but it's one of the books. Dr. Point, I understand that you had to send a message out, basically telling educators to tamp it down because it's been a bad week, or a bad couple of weeks with Charlie Kirk being murdered just because of his opinion. And evidently there are some educators that were expressing elation about this, being happy about this. My question is what kind of person behaves that way? I'm sitting in the group and I'm watching every time his name is mentioning, I'm watching people nod their head in disgust. We're not like them. And I know we're not like them because we've already forgiven the murderer. I know we're not like them because Charlie Kirk's wife has professed forgiveness of the murderer. That's not the way we work. And I'll give you more proof on that we are different from the color-coordinated people that are sitting in this room. Good stuff. Is it possible that you could pause this and show me in the rules?
We can't pause the clock at 40. We'll give you your time back.
Thank you very much, sir.
You have to direct your comments to the board.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were directed to the board,
I
but
know,
I wasn't referencing anybody specific. I wasn't referencing.
You and the previous speaker did.
I can't hear you. They're back
Sorry.
there grumbling.
You and the previous speaker did indirectly,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would ask you just to make your comments to the board and not directly or indirectly associate anyone who's not part of the board.
I'll work to do that.
All right, thank you.
It's hard
So
with
we got you back at 40.
the way things. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Yeah.
And it's just for people who are so well educated and professional, as they seem to remind you every meeting. It's amazing to me that you'd feel compelled to put out a message like that. Randy Weingartner, personally, I happen to find her repugnant and disgusting, but I would not wish one bit of harm on that woman. She's actually just come out with a wonderful book that many people will probably buy. Why Fascists Fear Teachers. It's ironic because fascists was on the round that murdered Charlie Kirk. We're not like them. And these people have access to our children, and that's my problem. Thank you.
Good evening. I do want to thank you for removing the book Flamer. That actually was a courageous decision despite everyone trying to convince you that about this book and to keep it. It pushes way too many ideologies that could be very inappropriate for most of our young readers. I know I certainly don't want my nieces and nephews reading it. I read the book myself. It is really bad. And I also was bullied as a child myself. So there's other ways. There's also supposed to be like a zero tolerance bullying policy in HCPS. So hopefully that stays, and that should help that problem. I also wanted to mention another thing, because there's been twice now tonight that other people were stopped to talk. Like, we're all not allowed to say anybody's name in the audience, but there is a board member up there that says our names. Whether we're a public figure or not, that needs to stop. I've already emailed about this. It keeps happening. Please stop referencing past candidates and current BOE candidates. I am sure there is way more productive issues that you can bring up when it's your turn to comment from the dais. And that's it. Thanks. Have a good night.
President Poynton, that's all the in-person speakers.
Thank you. Do we have any virtual?
I believe so, yes.
Good evening. You are now in the Board of Education meeting. Before you begin your public comment, please state your first and last name. Your time will conclude in 2 minutes. You'll hear a bell ring when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please introduce yourself and you may begin your public comment now.
Hello. My name is Julie Parker. Board of Education, once again, I would implore you to approve a LifeWise Academy pilot group in the Harford County school system and join the tens of thousands of students across the country who are thriving and growing in biblical curriculum. It teaches ancient wisdom, morals, better life choices to guide students and impact our communities positively. So let's stop opposing this and immediately get the ball rolling. Signatures are being collected to testify that parents and citizens of Harford County want this in their public schools to push back the environment of violence, poor school scores, bullying, suicide, poor morals, poor choices, and even murders across the country. Parents, go to lifewise.org website and don't miss the upcoming movie, Off School Property, Solving the Separation of Church and State, starting October 23rd in selected theaters. Our children are adrift with no anchor and no hope. Board of Education, please do not delay this incredible opportunity any longer. Implement the LifeWise Academy pilot group as soon as possible. This is a critical time in our country and in Harford County, and we are just waiting on you, Board of Ed, to approve it. Thank you. Property, solving the separation of church and state.
Good evening. You are now in the Board of Education meeting. Before you begin your public comment, please state your first and last name. Your time will conclude in 2 minutes. You will hear a bell ring when you have 30 seconds remaining. Please introduce yourself and you may begin your public comment now. Phone number ending in 0906. Can you hear me?
Good evening. My name is Katie York. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. As September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, I want to highlight the urgent need to support the mental health of all of our students. Harford County suicide rate is higher than the Maryland state average and has been rising the last 10 years. According to the CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death in U.S. for youth aged 10 to 14 and the third for those between ages 15 and 24. Research consistently shows that historically excluded groups, particularly LGBT+ youth, face significantly higher rates of suicidality. It's critical to understand these risks are not due to their identities, but because of social pressures, bullying, stigma, discrimination, rejection, and a lack of access to affirming environments. This is why decisions like removing the book Flamer from HCPS are so concerning. Removing books like this doesn't protect students. It erases the experience of those who are most vulnerable and sends a message that their stories don't belong. Once again, implore the board to reverse the decision and move the book Flamer from HCPS libraries, return it to the shelf. If we're serious about suicide prevention, we need to create spaces that all students feel safe, seen, and supported, not silenced. Dr. Poynton, your September 14th Facebook post about directing administration is outside your role as president of the Board of Education. Additionally, posting this open letter to HCPS employees on Facebook instead of sending it directly to employees reeks of political grandstanding. You stated that educators must be role models of civility, respect, and humanity. Are you? I'm pleased to see the listening sessions back on the calendar. Please make them accessible to the greater community by live streaming and recording them. Additionally, please do not try to sidestep the open meeting act by excluding a majority of board members. Have everyone present. Thank you.
Dr. Poynton, that concludes our virtual public comment for this evening.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for showing up this evening with your comments. We're going to switch over to board member comments. Last week, I actually skipped our vice president, so we'll start first with her.
Good evening. It's today with heavy hearts that we reflect on the recent loss of one of our students. There are no words that can fully capture the grief that touches all of us in moments like these. Losing a young life is something no school, no family, and no community should ever have to endure. And yet here we are trying to make sense of what feels senseless. Now more than ever, we must lean into the strength of this community. Healing is not a solitary act. It is something that we do together. And now, if I may, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about focus. As a board, our responsibility is not only to govern, but to lead, and leadership requires focus. In today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in the noise of the rumors, divisive narratives, distractions that pull us away from what truly matters. Our commitment must remain clear and unwavering to inspire, to prepare, and to help every student achieve. Our mission isn't just a slogan, it's a promise. It's a promise to keep students at the center of every decision, a promise to support our educators, empower our families, and strengthen our schools. We can't allow outside noise, internal division to dilute our purpose. The work ahead demands clarity, collaboration, and courage. Let's choose to elevate the conversation, to focus on solutions, and to model the very resilience and focus we hope to instill in our students. Let's continue moving forward together, inspired, prepared, and ready to achieve. Lastly, I want to mention the Maryland Page program. This is an incredible opportunity for high school seniors to serve along Maryland legislators during the annual session of the Maryland General Assembly. The deadline to apply is this Friday. The application can be found on our HCPS website, and I strongly encourage seniors to check this opportunity out. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start down at this end with Ms. Alvarez.
I wasn't expecting that. But, thank you all for being here and being present. I want you all to know that I keep all of you in my prayers, and all of the staff, all of the parents, the students, and those that are dealing with some of the, the struggles that we have in our schools. I lift up the people in authority in our schools, that they may lead with courage, truth. I ask that our communities come together to be more peaceful and tranquil, that they are focused on dignity and each other's uniqueness. These are the goodness, this is the goodness that we have, and these things bring us together in love, and they are pleasing. And I want to make a few comments in reflecting upon some of the public comments tonight. One was, I'm not, well, I can bring up the structure of the library. I believe the library, some of the schools now, there's a lot of schools that are middle school and high school together, so I don't know if that's an issue. I will look into that a little bit more to find out if that is an issue. But the more I've reflected upon my decision to vote to remove Flamer from our library, the more I feel like that was the right decision. It is a book that does contain pornographic gestures. They may be caricatures, they may not be real photographs, but when you have content that has children ejaculating into a bottle, that's a pornographic content that should not be in our schools. I want to talk about the bullying that the book does bring up, because I think it does have some important content that our students need to be aware of. Our schools, our board, have worked very diligently to have procedures in place to address bullying. We ask that those procedures be used to their fullest capacity, that they be encouraged to fill out the bullying forms, and I ask that the schools ensure that the bullying that occurs be taken seriously and address, each concern. Lastly, I want to address a comment because it's been comments that people outside of this forum have come to me with, and that is that parents are feeling like they need to take their students out of school, out of the public education system, and homeschool, or put them in other alternatives. Some parents have come to me very concerned, and a single mother came to me. How am I going to do this? We need to focus on providing an environment that's going to encourage virtuous behaviors, purity, and respect and the dignity of our personhood, and not objectify individuals and not create an environment that says they've seen it, so why are we, they've already seen it. They've seen it on TikTok. They've seen it on social media. So they've already seen it. They've heard the curse words. And I think I'm going to stop with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bruce?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another meeting with the Harford County Board of Education. Last week, I participated in a virtual training conducted by the Maryland Association Board of Education related to governance responsibility. It was a virtual, 82 slides. They asked why we were, taking the training, because it was the state of Maryland, Board of Education members from various counties. And my response was, because I think you're never too old to learn. As I proceed on this journey for this year, my last term on the Board of Education, I wanted to emphasize our governance responsibility. The staff and Dr. Bolson's responsibility is operations. And we really get mixed up in that. We are here to govern. And I talked to my fellow board members about the training. I offered the slides that I had received. And so, I encourage them to look at those slides and look at what our responsibility is. I also joined the staff at the Old Post Road School on the 17th, welcoming back the students and the parents back to school. So they called it a blast. You know, we often get criticized for visiting schools, but we need to go out and see what's going on in the community. We need to offer support. These are invites that come to us. And as I am invited, I will continue to go and support the students and staff at the schools. The other thing that I would like to announce is the second HBCU, Historical Black Colleges and Universities College Fair. It's going to be held at Joppatown High School on Wednesday, October the 29th, from 6 to 8. There is a one of these scan codes. So I will have this flyer if anyone wants to scan the code. When the break, you can come see me. I will continue to announce it as we get closer to the date. We have a lot of comments about what this board individuals did with Flamer. I did not read the book, and I abstained from the vote. I abstained for the reasons that I thought the process was well developed, and I heard all kinds of comments coming from members of the board who read the book, who went through the book and looked at it. I am a grandmother of 12. My daughter had 9 children, and she homeschooled all but the last one. Why? Because it was an Air Force family and they traveled around. But I supported her in that endeavor. And now I have 5 great-grandchildren in Mississippi going to school. And I support my granddaughter down there with her children. I believe that parental responsibility is what drives the train. My granddaughter is involved in the schools down there, and my daughter was involved with her children's education. Parental responsibility would mean to me, if I had a child who was reading the book, to talk to them about it, ask why they're reading it, what's the purpose, what's going on. And I think that should be done with any book that a child gets from the library that is not required as a part of their curriculum. So I encourage all of you, if you don't have children, support the ones that have children and be a parent to a child who needs you. And thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I would like to congratulate the North Hartford High School Envirothon team again, and Ms. O'Leary once again. We're so proud of you, and keep up the good work. I would like to send my sincere condolences to the family of Blake Elliott, whom sadly passed away in a tragic car accident this past week. I pray that God give you peace and comfort during this most difficult time. Please continue to pray for healing for the young man, Zach, whom was critically injured in the accident as well, the bus driver, and the many students and staff whom have been touched by this tragic event in one way or another. It was a beautiful sight to see that students supporting one another at the candlelight vigil they held on Friday evening, and then today lined up alongside the road in support of the bus drivers. Keep supporting one another. We are HCPS strong. My thoughts and prayers are with every one of you. In the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I would like to take a few moments to address some concerns that I have seen and listened to sitting up here on the dais. We are the adults in the room. We are setting the example for our children. Whether you agree with the things that Charlie said or didn't, no one deserves to be a victim of violence, of any type of violence. Celebrating his death, any death, is evil. Our children are watching. We all have the God-given right of freedom of speech. While it is okay to have a different opinion, it is not okay to condone violence in any way or in any form. I have heard hateful rhetoric sitting up here, and I've seen it online. The hateful rhetoric that we have seen for years now is exactly what caused the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This should be a lesson that dehumanizing someone or a group of people has lasting hateful effects, and that our words and opinions differing from our own are never to be met with violence in any way. This same hateful rhetoric also prevents people that have differing opinions from coming to our meetings and speaking in opposition to the removal of books or opposing anything that is controversial for fear of retaliation against themselves or their children. I've heard from teachers, staff, administrators, parents, and students that they will not speak up because of the same fear. I talk to so many individuals that want to remain anonymous because they don't want the backlash or the hate that goes along with it, and along with speaking out or having a different opinion. This is a huge issue, as we should all be able to freely speak about our concerns, issues, or things that we stand for without fear of retaliation. From fights in schools to bullying, degrading remarks in this boardroom, the behavior is unacceptable. We all have the responsibility to provide a better example for our children. We, as the educational community, have a great responsibility to teach our children compassion and respect for all. When a contract for employment is offered, those individuals must have the highest standard of professionalism and take the responsibilities as role models and figures to our students that they look up to as serious and of utmost importance. Parents trust us to always live up to those standards. I pray that we can all put our differences aside, respect our differences, and always put the needs of our students in the forefront of every decision that we make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McVicker.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out and speaking tonight. I would like to start off by announcing that the Harford County Regional Association of Student Councils will be hosting a 5K run. This is its second annual run, and it will be hosted at Harford Technical High School on October 18th. Gates open at 9 a.m. and the race begins at 10. Tickets can be found at School Clash Online. HCPS is also hosting a youth town hall on October 2nd at Bel Air High School from 5 to 7 p.m. The purpose of this event is to inform young people about the upcoming Bel Air and Aberdeen elections. Students will learn about registering to vote, how the voting process works, and hear directly from local candidates. We encourage all young people to attend, even if they can't vote, so they can make their voice heard. I would like to encourage all youth in the community, if you are interested, to apply for the County Executive's Youth Commission. Applications can be found at harfordcountymd.gov. Lastly, I'd like to take a moment to speak to the profound sense of grief our community is still feeling following the tragic accident from last week. Like so many of my fellow students, my heart remains with those affected. My deepest, most heartfelt sympathies continue to be with the families, the friends, and all the loved ones who are navigating this unimaginable loss. During this difficult time, I ask that we all please hold our loved ones close and continue to support one another as a community. We are keeping everyone affected in our constant thoughts and prayers. May God bless you all during these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mueller?
Sure. Well, I've heard a lot about colored shirts today, and may I say we have got a rainbow of shirts out there. We've got the navy blue shirts, we've got the yellow shirts, the red shirts, the purple shirts. We even have a turquoise shirt back there, I see. So people wear different color shirts. Good for you. I don't understand what the big deal is. I really don't. You know, the navy blue shirts have been coming here for a long time, and yet nobody refers to them as the navy blue shirts. Purple shirts have just started coming, yet they become vilified because they don't agree with the navy blue shirts. I don't get what the big deal is, and I know you all support rainbows, so let's just move on beyond that. The CIP program, we look at. Someone has complained that we spent $10 million on new buses since 2017 and has now suggested that we just defy the rule and don't buy new buses anymore. But why do we buy new buses? Well, the state requires that the buses be replaced every 15 years. Kind of makes sense if you've owned an old car, as I have many times in my life. After you've had cars for so long, things start to go wrong. And I'm sure with buses that put the miles on that our school buses do, they also have things that go wrong with them. And you can expect a certain amount of breakdowns where it becomes more expensive to maintain and keep those buses up than it does to replace them. So the state has decided 15 years is the lifespan of a bus. If you want us to defy that because you've had an old roof on your house for a longer time, I don't know that we can do that and still get funding from the state, but I do think that it's important that for the safety of our children that we follow those general guidelines. There's a lot of things that are brought up at these meetings and that people agree with and disagree with and have arguments about. I don't particularly like the way that the book banning took place, and I know some people talk about it as curating age-appropriate reading material. Then we should have called it the procedure for curating age-appropriate material. But instead what we've done is we've removed books from the library. As someone mentioned previously, you can keep your child from being able to check out any book that you want to. It's just talking about the availability of books for other students. Who decides what's pornography and what's not pornography? Well, there's a lot of things that have been argued about that over the years. You can read online if you want to, sexually explicit material, material that's designed to cause sexual arousal. I don't know that that book was designed to do that. I don't know under those definitions if it's actually pornography. So when it's a matter of opinion like that, shouldn't the parents have the right to decide? Shouldn't the parents have the choice? You're always talking about parental choice. Why don't we have parental choice in this situation? I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We have two virtual members. Mr. Sewell, do you have comments this evening?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to express my deepest condolences to the Elliott family and the C. Milton Wright, our C. Milton Wright family, and everyone that was affected by this tragedy. And that's all the comments I have tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Perry?
Good evening. I also would like to express my condolences, and I'm looking forward to for the board to be more together, and I believe that we're going to be able to do a lot of good right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just conclude by saying thank you to the board, thank you to the public for showing up here and engaging in these discussions, which will ultimately improve the quality of our education system. I'll try not to duplicate here, but I will say two things. One of them is an agenda item, which is coming up, but I know that half, if not more of you, will probably leave during break and you won't stick around for it. So I would ask you, if you have a couple minutes and you don't have to run out of here, please stick around after the break, because we're going to launch something really big tonight. You know, a lot of education happens in the classroom, but a lot of education and real life lessons happen outside of the classroom as well, whether that's sports or extracurriculars, or in this case, it's going to be the mentorship program that we're launching this evening. And I want to thank Dr. Davis and his team that had been working on this for 6 months to a year, which was a vision that I had, and it was supported by many board members to launch this. You have seen them present previously at other board meetings, and we heard you, we listened to you. You said you needed money. Guess what? We found you money. You said you needed support. We're here to support you. So tonight, if you have time, stick around, because the first item when we return is we're launching the HCPS Mentorship Alliance. So thank you, Dr. Davis. Also, recently, we just relaunched our Patriot program. I know there was a lot of controversy about that last year because we were going through some changes. You know, it's difficult to make everybody happy all of the time, but I will say I'm very impressed with the changes that we made to this program. We have some ideas about how we're going to continue to support the program and continue to grow it. But from Dr. Mack all the way down to every single person in the classroom, and even Dr. Bolson, who got out there and was wearing some costumes, I think, recently. Thank you very much for supporting this program. You know it was a board priority and a community priority as well, and happy that we relaunched that. I think there's a lot to talk about. There's clearly a lot going on. There's a lot of issues. I wish I could get into it here, but instead what I'm going to do is redirect you. If you want to speak to me and other members of the board and not be limited to 2 minutes and 3 pages of rules, please come see me and the other board members next week. We have our first listening session on next Tuesday, September 30th, which will be at 5:30 to 7:30 at C. Milton Wright High School. So please join me there. Would love to continue the conversation with you. Thank you again for showing up. We're going to move on to old business, of which we have none. And Madam Vice President, please read the consent agenda.
Number 1, monthly personnel report, August 2025. Number 2, FY 2027 capital improvement program.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Carol Bruce, second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, please say no. Thank you. The motion passes. And we will have a 10-minute break. Please be back at 7:40. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. The room cleared out, so I guess the Ravens are about to start. We'll give live updates here every couple minutes. But in the meantime, moving on to new business, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, launching the HCPS Mentorship Alliance. Welcome, Dr. Davis, Deputy Superintendent for Operations. Welcome.
All right. Well, good evening, Board, and thank you all so much for allowing us to be here this evening to talk about something that is very near and dear to our hearts, mentoring. I'm joined tonight by Dr. Paula Stanton, who is the Supervisor of Culture and Climate. And we also have Mr. Usmanu Yakuba, who is chiming in virtually as well to be a part of this discussion. We're excited because this, as Dr. Poynton mentioned, has been in process for about a year. And over the past year, this board has had an opportunity to see different mentoring programs come in front of them, all with unique differences and different missions, all focused on the same goal, though, student success. And probably back last March or so, Dr. Poynton reached out to me. He says, you know, Eric, we need to really pull all of our mentoring programs together under one umbrella so that we could focus on giving them the support that they need to be successful. And so, Dr. Poynton, thank you for your vision and your leadership at making this happen. And I truly believe that this will be a national model. I said it on September the 22nd. All right, I did. Mark my words. All right, so as we think about that umbrella that I just talked about and how we need for these programs to be successful, we're focusing on 6 areas, and you see the 6 areas on the screen. Engagement, support, accountability, consistency, partnership, and resources. And we feel like if we have all these things in place, that we can put the pieces of the puzzle together so that these mentoring programs can do what we know they can do, is move forward with student success. Now, as mentioned, tonight is a kickoff, if you will. It's when we bring together and talk about our mentoring alliance. And really, this is a call to action, all right? Because right now, our mentor website is live on the hcps.org webpage, right now. And we've got the QR code up there. You go to the hcps.org, you'll see our mission, you'll see partner contacts, and new partner interest and new mentor interest, some things I'll talk about a little later in the presentation. So we're so excited about that, so excited. Now, if folks are interested, when you go to the website, the first thing you will see is, well, we have all of the buttons. That red rectangle that outlines the mentor button. When you see that button, you click on that. That will take you to the Mentorship Alliance page where you'll see safety and security. You'll see our mission, our vision, and just some background information about the program. But here's the part that I am excited about tonight, and this really fits into our call to action, because there are 2 areas. You can see 2 buttons. First is the Mentorship Alliance button for community organizations who would like to come in and partner with HCPS to really spread mentoring all around this county. And if you have a 501c3 or mentoring program that you're interested in starting, you click on that button, you fill out this application, and then we'll have someone from our office talk to you, and we'll talk about how your vision can align with ours so that we can possibly bring your organization into our district. All right, that's the first thing. But then the second part, I am so excited about, so excited, because this is our Mentor Alliance individual interest form. Now, we meet with all of our mentor leads every month, different locations. We meet with them every month. And the last time we met with them, one of the things they told me, they says, Eric, you know, one of the biggest areas of focus for us is just really finding available mentors, folks that we can utilize for our programs. And I said, okay, you know what? We'll hear you loud and clear. We will create an application for all of our mentors who are interesting. So if you're at home or if you go to our website and you have an interest in giving of your service and your time to be a mentor, you can fill out this application. A little bit of background information about you, why you would like to be a mentor in Harford County Public Schools, maybe some things about you around leadership, your occupation, things like that. But at the bottom, it's your consent to a background check, an HCPS background check. Now, we'll take all of those mentors who are in this database, vet them to make sure they're aligned with our program, and then we will create a mentor database. And the goal would be to have hundreds of mentors there. So if our mentor leads are looking for someone who wants to mentor, they can go to this database and pull someone out because they'll know that they've already been vetted by HCPS. And we're just very excited about that. Can you tell I'm excited? All right, so the next part is just the logos on the website. And really and truly, you know, and that's still evolving. Right now, one of the things that we'd like to do is that when you go to the website and you see the logos, we'd love for you to be able to click on that logo and go to the individual mentoring programs website. We're not there yet, but we're trying to get there. Okay, so that's where we are there. Now, this next part is like, I think, the essence of what we're doing. You know, I've heard from teachers, I've heard from principals, and several board members talk to me about, okay, so when you start this mentoring program, how are you going to monitor the effectiveness of it? How are you going to do that? How are you going to monitor if the mentors are really doing what they say they're doing to move forward for student success? Well, we've put together a data dashboard. A data dashboard is absolutely fantastic. That means all of our mentees will be in this dashboard, so we'll be able to monitor things like attendance, like discipline data, like student achievement data, and we'll be able to see if our mentees are moving in the right direction. And we can ask questions about it, because one of the things the board, you said to me, is you wanted to see and have quarterly updates about mentoring. And so we would love to be able to come back to you and give you updates about where we are in this process. Now, the other part of this is a program evaluation. Dr. Bolson reached out to Usmanu Yakubat, and he said, look, you know, we're doing all of this with mentoring. We would love to do a research report on this year while we're in the implementation year, learn some best practices, lessons learned, so that when we go into next year, we can use that data to fuel our success. And so that's one of the things that we're going to do with this as well. I mean, we're very excited about this. Can you tell I'm excited? Now, Dr. Stanton, you want to talk a little bit about the idea that you had as far as a person overseeing that? Yeah.
So we know we have faced some financial struggles in our district, but we're looking to secure grant funding so that we can have someone who will really do some of the day-to-day legwork and visit all of the programs, ensuring that they talking to students, connecting with communities, looking at some of our accountability measures, and then reporting back to my office and to the larger district about what's happening so that we see what's happening every single day. So we're looking for some funding, more to come on that because we're still thinking through what that might look like. We know it's important that we meet our goals and that we align with our vision and that we show and we prove that mentoring is important. And so we want to make sure we can do that.
Thank you, Dr. Stanton. Mm-hmm. All right, so again, just some an example of the dashboard that you see there. I won't go into too much detail there, but I will direct your attention to that bottom number. And this was last year. I believe we had 329 students, 7 mentoring programs, 7 host sites. Now, what we would like to do, just because with our quarterly updates to the board, we would like to present to you every quarter, and hopefully what you'll see is that number grow, right? Number of students. So right there you see 329. We'd love for that number to keep growing, as I know you would, Ms. Hahn, as well, right? And so once we get to that point, we'll be able to talk about those best practices, lessons learned, things that we're doing to enhance the different programs, but also to ensure that all of our students are successful. So that's something that we'll be looking at as well. Just another example of the data we'll be looking at, school attendance, so to speak. But now, the part that Dr. Poynton mentioned in his opening comments, again, we can't thank our county executive enough for these generous grants that they have provided to fund this particular program. You know, our mentoring programs right now are in the process of, and they're just about done with filling out the applications, and we're about to push send on this, but they've all been able to go through, with your support, Dr. Point and the county executive, and to get the funding that they need for their individual mentoring program, okay? And they are just ecstatic about that, Now, part of that process, okay, because one of the barriers that we heard about for some of our mentors is like, wow, okay, well, if you're going to ask me to mentor, can you at least pay for me to be a mentor? Well, guess what we're going to do with some of this grant funding? We're going to pay for all of our mentors in the mentoring programs to become mentors. That's what we're doing, all right? And that is going to be a game changer. So when we create this mentoring database and we start off with 4 or 5 mentors in there and that number grows, we're going to be able to, you know, look at all of the people in there and say, you know what, we assisted to get them in here because we paid for them to be a mentor in Harford County Public Schools. Can you tell I'm excited about this? All right. So with that, I know we've talked a lot. Oh, before I close, I do want to thank some people, all right, because we do have a central office mentoring group that comes together. We have mentoring every 2 weeks, mentor meetings. And Ms. Chelsea Davis, Sarah Sachs, Mary Beth Stapleton, who's been instrumental in all of this, obviously Dr. Paula Stanton, who is just amazing, Joe Harbert, and Pam Smith. Did I miss anybody?
I think you got her.
Oh, well, I'm sure I'll hear about it if I did. So this is our central office group who has done a stellar job at working with us to put all of this together. And none of this would be possible without this group, so I wanted to make sure that we gave them kudos. So again, thank you all so much for your support, board. You all have been amazing. Your vision has just been to make sure that we have mentoring all across the school district. I think we have a good start here, and so I would, at this point, open it up for questions. Thank you so much.
Before you do that, just so you know, we see some people with the gleam of mentoring in their eyes, so we're actively recruiting tonight, too. Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
Stan, thank you. Eric, thank you. Usman, dashboard looks great, like always. You guys did a great job taking this from an idea to implementation. So very excited about this. And then also, the funding piece should be ongoing.
Yeah.
Because this is coming, the funding source that we're tapping into through the county grants is funding that's coming through cannabis tax revenue, I believe. And cannabis probably isn't going anywhere, so we have a solid funding stream. So we'll open it up to board member questions or comments.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm excited for this too. Yeah. I think this kind of aligns with what one of the things I was saying in my opening comments. Mentorship is so important to build that moral character that creates, a person that is virtuous and is pure, and will counter some of this culture that we have on, some of the social media that might not be as positive.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Usman. Yeah.
All right, well, anything else?
I just wanted to say, I've been a huge supporter. Like, I think it's so important, the work that we're going to accomplish by doing these mentors. I think it's amazing, and I'm excited too.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, yes. See, I knew I'd forgotten somebody. Dr. Rockland White, who is our grant writer, who has just been
hard at work, right.
instrumental in this process. So again, wanted to make sure we shouted her out too. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. I believe I stay up
And
here.
you do stay up here.
Kerry Ridgway also.
Oh, God.
We need a long laundry
Oh,
list.
You see? Well, that one I would have heard about, right?
All right, well, you can stay in the hot seat. We're going to move on to item D, decision on proposed new board policy for volunteers, which probably also aligns to this mentorship program. Dr. Davis.
Yeah, no, thank you. I guess over 30 days ago, Ms. Mary Beth Stapleton, our manager of Family Community Partnerships, came in front of you to present this proposed policy. It has gone out now for over 30 days, and so tonight we're in front of you to just ask for your approval for the policy. When we put it out, I believe we've got 5 comments back from the community in different areas, some on background checks, some for funding of background checks. And so I feel that, just based on the policy that we have in place right now, I think we're able to capture a lot of those things that were mentioned. Now, I will say this. We are creating a volunteering or volunteer website as well that will have a lot of information on there, because I know, Ms. Alvarez, you had asked about the classification and the roles of the different volunteers. And so I believe that a lot of that could be spelled out on our volunteer website as well. And so with that, I would ask that you approve the volunteer.
Okay, thank you. The board's had time to review it. It's been out for 30 days of public comment.
President Boynton?
Yes.
I did have one change that I wanted to.
Sure, what is that?
I submitted that as a request, as Dr. Davis mentioned, and I think that it's important that we explicitly call out our community partners in the table for the screening overview, that they're added to that column for the indirect
Okay.
supervised.
Just put community
And I think
partners.
that's in line with what we're doing anyway, and based on the mentoring, slides, that is, something that they would be required to do. So I think our community partners should know that, that they would be in that category.
Got it.
And was that one of the comments received from public comment this
So,
evening as well?
so it's interesting you should
Yeah, I was
should
going
say
to
that.
ask the same thing as
Yeah,
Stu.
yeah, no, actually, and I, at the break, I sought out the young lady who gave me did the public comments, and I told her they were absolutely fantastic. The first one that she mentioned was consider changing the language from community partners, may have a instead of may have a memorandum of understanding to they must. Well, all right, so here's the thing, okay? I'd like to keep it the way it is, only because, all right, many of our community partners aren't the ones who partner with us to do like mentoring programs and so forth. So you have some community partner organizations who partner with us, and they do have an MOU with us. But then you have some other community partners that we partner with who may come in and be a guest DJ, or may come in and do something else that volunteers on a one-time basis, and we may not have an MOU with them. And so that's why we have that wording in there about may have one.
So if I understand that correctly, if you have an ongoing relationship with
Yes.
them, then they would
Yes,
have an MOU.
they would have an MOU.
If it's a one-off, then it possibly would not.
And to that end, that's a lot of the stuff that we can spell out on our volunteer website with the guidelines and things like that, because when she mentioned it, I thought that was a great point.
Okay, let's keep it the way it is then, and just not
Yeah.
make it overly burdensome. And
Yes.
just use your discretion as to when you need to MOU if it's a sort
Yeah.
of recurring partner. What was the other one?
The other one was Roman numeral 4, item B, volunteer guidelines. Please consider adding the phrase local and state federal requirements. I don't have an issue with just inserting that in there. Now, again, we'd have to check with legal to see if that would be a substantive change. But I don't have an issue adding that in as well.
What section?
Roman numeral 4, item B, under volunteer guidelines, it says, please consider adding the phrase local, state, and federal requirements. The phrase would read, all volunteer activities will align with district goals, safety standards, and local, state, and federal requirements for public school education.
Look,
I think
keep
that
the word legal in
encompasses-
there. I think I don't have an issue either way. My opinion on this wouldn't be that it isn't substantive, that when you say legal, you're assuming there's a
Okay.
presumption that it's federal, state, and local. But for the avoidance of doubt, I have no issue adding it in there unless someone objects. I think it's non-substantive.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was it?
Well, actually, there was one more, and I was able to speak with her at the break. And again, I thanked her for this because, Section 3H eligibility item number 4 discusses the rights of HCPS to dismiss volunteers whose conduct violates established expectations. This section notes why a person or group might be dismissed, but not how and whom that process is initiated. It doesn't explain the process that the offending individual or organization can expect to be followed in the event of concerning behavior. It is important for students, staff, parents, and community members to have this information up front should the need for action arise. Please consider adding language to explain this process. And I had shared with her that's something that we could put on the website so that everyone could see it. Because most of the people are not going to be looking at policy.
Yeah, I would say just make sure that information is accessible to the public.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, were there any other questions or comments or recommendations? So I think there's that one change to the policy, non-substantive, and then let's also make sure that we're in compliance with the other issues.
Absolutely.
Outside of the policy. So I'll take a motion and a second, please, to approve the proposed new board policy on volunteers. It doesn't have a policy number. Did we assign one, just out of curiosity?
We will. It's a new one, so
Okay.
it'll get assigned.
This is Melissa, and I move that we adopt the new policy volunteers.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Diane, I second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 There any opposed, please say no. Thank you. The motion passes.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your support.
Okay, we're going to move on to item E, discussion on 2025-26 HCPS synchronous instruction plan for inclement weather days. I'd like to welcome our Chief of Staff, Ms. Katie Ridgway. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm not sure I can garner as much excitement as Dr. Davis for this topic, but I will do my best to continue such positivity. So I am here before you this evening to bring back up discussion of the HCPS synchronous instruction plan for inclement weather days. We brought this forward because there was some support in the community for reducing the number of days that we have to go into for the summer by doing virtual synchronous instruction. During the development of this particular process, we did our best to do our due diligence to explore and plan for this opportunity to support that sentiment of ending school earlier in the summer. After I presented here at the previous meeting, we did receive some public comment with desire to include asynchronous instruction, which we cannot do according to the state. Concerns for pre-K students and special education students having access to virtual synchronous instruction. General anti-virtual learning. One very supportive with some suggestions about attendance and assignments. And one concern about the number of built-in days. What we have found is that the board had asked us to look into some alternatives about the hotspots. because of the cost and that level of instruction. We have not found alternatives in order to reach all of our students in a meaningful way to have that instruction actually provide instruction. So we have not found a viable alternative, so the costs that we would incur would remain there. We also do continue to hear and see challenges for accessing virtual instruction for all students, but if the board does support synchronous instruction, we will continue our best faith effort to deliver this if desired.
Okay, thank you. Just some additional comments. I think well, the whole thing that led to this was the state law change, giving us a little bit more flexibility. Last year, and I think this year as well, we ran a survey. There was a lot of public support behind it, especially from parents and I think students as well. But the challenges that emerged from the board discussion with conjunction, with what the administration was working on with the pricing and the hotspot, raised a bunch of issues which I think haven't been resolved yet, including the cost, the time needed to implement it at central staff, and there were a few other issues around it. But last board meeting, we did, if I recall, I think we approved moving from 6 days to 3 days, right? For inclement weather, which would give us some additional flexibility. Should we needed a waiver from the state, we could now do that at 3 days. So the main point of doing this was to make sure that we weren't, using so many inclement weather days that we were kind of going into like the middle or the end of June. But I think that by reducing it from 6 to 3, and also many of these outstanding items haven't been resolved yet, it would be, in my opinion, that we work to continue to work through some of these issues, and that we postpone this indefinitely, which doesn't kill it, it just kind of moves it, off the agenda until someone wants to bring it back up. So with that in mind, I'll open it for additional questions or comments from board members.
Well, to address that, you said that, so the cost is an issue, right? Is that what we're concerned about?
Some
right?
board members did bring up cost,
Right.
the cost of the hotspots, and this doesn't account for any time to develop the material, which has a cost, although it's sort of like an overhead cost. But it was about $200,000 because we have to keep we have to keep like an annual contract on those hotspots. And some of the board member discussions, I think from Mr. Korn, who's not here, and from Ms. Hahn, were that some board members thought that money could be better used elsewhere. But that was one of sort of several issues that board members
Yeah.
raised.
And Katie, you mentioned that you did look into alternatives and you exhausted them and were unable to.
Find another viable option.
You could not
I
find
know you
another
had
one.
asked specifically about use of the phones. We did look at the use of providing a cell phone, which would be more expensive than the hotspots. And then we also don't believe that the phone would give viable instruction for 4 hours for a student day.
One of the other concerns is that we would not be able to reach everyone in the county, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But even with the hotspot, there are students that would not necessarily be able to access it. That's the repetitive concerns about our students who are multilingual learners, or students who receive special education services, our youngest learners, et cetera, that it is not conducive for their learning for that day.
And just to refresh my memory, I think we're out the 200K, use or not, we have to keep them live.
Yeah, I mean,
If we were
yeah.
to do that, yes.
Yeah, whether you use it, if you're gonna pay $200K if you don't have a single inclement weather day. And also you have like the cost of developing the curriculum, which has to be done now.
Well, we would have to prepare all of our staff and families through professional development. We'd have to have practice days. We'd have to, ensure that families were comfortable with the technology that their students were going to use on that day. So whether or not we ever called a day, if we did move forward with this plan, there would be a significant effort to put forth to be prepared for the plan that we may or may not use.
So, President Quinton, tabling this, do we move forward as a school system to continue to develop it and then bring it back at a later stage?
To be clear, the motion that I'm requesting would be to postpone indefinitely, which is a little bit different than tabling it. But my sense is that if we do postpone it indefinitely, it probably Unless there was an extraordinary reason to do so, it probably wouldn't come up again at least this year, but we could certainly bring it up next year. Because if we don't do it now, we're not going to have time to implement anything before we get to the bad weather season. So
Okay.
it would
All right.
effectively remove it for discussion for the remainder of the year.
Okay. So I do not disagree with you, okay? I don't think that we should do the synchronous learning days this year. I do want to mention, though, if we did get the hotspots, that this would not be, they can only use them if there's an inclement weather day. This would be providing internet access to those students who may not have it, might not cover everybody. We might not be able to cover everybody. And I do think we should look at maybe grant funding or something to see if we can provide some hotspots to those children who don't have internet access, because I think in doing their homework and everything else as they move on in school, life is a lot more difficult if you can't use the internet at home. So I think that that would be a worthwhile cause, but I do not think that at this point that we're ready to look at synchronous learning.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that look good on paper, but then when you start, diving into the details, it's like the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. So
I agree with you, Dr. Mueller, but I think that that should be a cost onto the infrastructure of our community and not necessarily onto the school system.
So that's why I said look at
Yeah.
grant funding. I wasn't trying to say that it should come out of school funds. I was trying to say that we could look for exterior grants to help us with that. External grants, excuse me.
anything else to add?
No.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second, please, to postpone this indefinitely?
I move to postpone the synchronous learning plan indefinitely.
I second the
Ms.
motion.
Denise, I second the motion.
We got a second and a third, so there's a lot of support. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, please say no. Thank you, the motion passes and has been
Are you
postponed.
excited now?
Now everybody's got to go to school during the snow days, so a couple inches won't hurt them, right, Eric? A couple inches of snow. Okay, now we're going to move on to something that very exciting, financial report. All right, item F, presentation of quarterly financial report for the period ending June 30th, 2025. Welcome, Ms. Deborah Judd, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services.
I'm glad somebody finally recognizes it's exciting. Good evening, President Poynton, Vice President Page, Dr. Bolson, board members. I'm here tonight to share with you our preliminary results as of June 30, 2025. Our audit is not complete yet, so these are unaudited results, but I'm not expecting any material changes in the numbers that we have. So once we get this situated, I will share with you. I will be sending a draft to you of the financial statements, hopefully by the end of this week, for you to review, and the auditors are in the middle of their work, and we're working with the county to provide them what they need, since they consolidate our numbers into theirs. So for revenues, we were at 100.3% of budget for the year. We had $1.8 million in excess of budget. If you recall, we did increase our budget to account for the additional rate stabilization funds and the interest. So our budget actually is increased there from what it was originally. I do want to point out, sorry about that, I want to go back one. Just as a reminder, we used $30 million in fund balance for FY25, so I'm going to come back to that later, but I wanted to point that number out again. Expenditures, we were at 99% of our budget. That's the highest that we have been as far as using our entire budget. If you see, we have two areas. We ended the year with less than $1,000. $200 in special education and $600 in student health services, $500 in maintenance of plant. Those are the lowest surpluses that I've seen since I've been here. If you recall, we also transferred significant funds into special education. That resulted in the 233 positive. So with the excess revenues over budget and the expenditures that were under budget, we have a surplus of $8 million. So we used 30 million in fund balance to balance the budget. So that was $30 million to pay for recurring costs in FY '25. We ended the year with $8 million. So we used 22 million of that assignment of fund balance. If you jump to the bottom of the screen, we have 22 million left in unassigned
30
fund
million
balance.
include the 2.5 that was added at the end of the year?
So 2.5 is for FY '26. This is
Oh,
FY '25.
okay,
Trust me, I get it. I live in 3 years at this time of year, so. So yes, different year. So the 22 million, so that is what would be available to consider for FY '27. I do have the 30 million above, the 12.5 million, which was the total 10 million that we initially proposed, and the 2.5 million the board proposed at June 30. So that is the FY '26 assignment that is in our budget for the current year. Does that help? Okay. And then the additional assignments that we have listed there, that brings our unassigned fund balance down to 22.5 million. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
On page 3, the chart, there's 2 things that I noticed, and I was wondering if you could just kind of give me a summary or explain the jump for community services from 2021 to 2025. Initially, they were probably about 15%, and now they're up to 95% for community services. And then the same thing for, I guess, instructional costs. From 2021, it was about 55%, and now it's at 95%. I'm just...
So for community services, in '21, we were closed because of COVID. So we weren't doing any rental of our facilities. People weren't using our buildings or anything like that. So we used a very small portion of that budget. Whereas in subsequent years, we increased a little bit in '22, '23, and then fully back to normal. And, you know, we're up to almost 100% of that budget. So that's what that's reflecting.
And that is what we're spending, or what revenue that we're receiving?
No, this
from-
is the expenditures.
Okay.
Are we looking at the page 3?
Yes.
Comparative expenditures?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we were closed, yes, we wouldn't have those expenditures.
Well, but that's the percent of what we had budgeted for that year. So if we had, that an accurate
What we
statement?
used for that year
Yeah,
in
but what we
comparison to
used-
budget.
Yeah, so.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the percent of what we used, and so the point is, going into that year, we probably left our budget similar to what had been in past. So if you were to extend this back probably just to FY '18, '19, '20, you'd probably see that back up closer to 100. It's just, we didn't use as much of what we budgeted, so it wasn't so much about what we spent, but, and then each year, because we know that people started coming back and do events, they didn't all come back at once, and so you saw that happen over those 3 years, so. And I suspect in the instructional costs thing, you see the same type of, you know, because we had savings in a number of areas during that time.
Correct.
So you see, again, those things coming back.
Okay, thank you.
Interest income is generated on assigned as well?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm sorry. Interest income is also generated on assigned fund balance?
Unassigned. Unassigned is what's sitting in the bank.
Do we generate interest income on both?
Well, the assignments, yes, it would be there until the money's used. So the 30 million that we had assigned, we were earning interest on July 1st last year. But as we use that money throughout the year, and we are seeing our interest revenue go down because there's less cash in the bank.
I have one more question. Sure. On page 8, the other revenue, the miscellaneous for 4,300,000, what encompasses that miscellaneous category?
That, for the most part, is going to be rebates on our P card usage. So we're part of a consortium. So as we use the P card to buy certain things, we get a portion of that back in a rebate. So that is in miscellaneous revenue.
Thank you.
But I can look and see what else is in there. I also think the 3 million that we had from the rate stabilization is also in that number. We don't have that broken out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you for the update. All right, we're going to move on to everyone's favorite subject, school calendar.
Oh, there's Jillian.
Presentation of 2026-27 HCPS school calendar. Welcome, Ms. Jillian Lader, Manager of Communications. Welcome.
Thank you. You're driving back there. I'm trying to control the mouse and it's magically happening for me. Our tech is amazing. Thank you. So, good evening, President Poynton, Vice President Page, board members, Superintendent Bolson. I am here to talk yet again, as Ms. Judd said, we're in a different year, so adjust your mindset to 2026, 2027. I think that all of you except Trey, and even those that are with us virtually, have been through this process multiple times now. So I won't go through painstaking detail because Trey also has had the privilege of being on the calendar committee, so we've had a chance to talk about some of the individual components of the calendar that have to be met, but I'll just hit a couple of things just as a friendly reminder for those in our community who might not be familiar with the process. The calendar committee is put together by the board. That was approved on a consent agenda prior to this meeting. The board then provided a calendar, a starting place for the calendar committee to review. And the calendar committee came together, had robust conversation, as always occurs. We have lots of different stakeholders on that committee to ensure that all kinds of perspectives are included in the development of the calendar, but always going back to realizing that what needs to occur with this calendar is what's best for students and instruction throughout the school year. So the calendar committee met, reviewed that purpose, that timeline, and we brought together some recommendations and some changes to the board calendar that was presented to the committee for consideration. So I want to walk through those with you right now. You will see that there is a new color this year. I'm calling it goldenrod. Some people are seeing that more as an orange, but you'll see that on there as planning days. So that would be teacher planning specifically. So those hot pink days are still those professional development days. The goldenrod is teacher planning days. And this will be put out on the website for 60 days of public comment following the presentation this evening. So following the committee meeting, it was determined or recommended that we add some additional days at the beginning of the school year for teacher planning. So you'll see that those professional development days were moved up so that now there's a total of 5 professional development days for all returning teachers. We still have those 2 professional development days for new hires prior to the start of PD and teacher planning for all. As was discussed at in previous years that the calendar has come up, we do have that start date as the first Tuesday in September. And that was a conversation that was had with the committee. There were suggestions on both sides of the fence. So given the conversation, though, that the board has had in the past, we kept with that first Tuesday of the month, setting that, that standard. And then pre-K starts with us 2 days later. And then, of course, we have Labor Day on September 7th. So I won't walk you through every single day. I'm going to highlight some of the things that are a little bit different this year. November 3rd is an election day. That's why you'll see that additional closure from the board calendar that was given to the committee. And then the 9th and the 10th are professional development days, but also that's to allow that elementary parent-teacher conferences. And then you'll see we have early dismissals prior to holidays like the Thanksgiving break, the winter break. And then you'll also see that early dismissals have been added for students only around the end of quarters. That was something that some of our administrators and teachers that were in the committee said would be very helpful to them to have those added as well. And then you'll see that we moved the teacher planning day from the end of spring break to the beginning. That also was a conversation with teachers and administrators in the calendar committee. So with the change that the board made to the policy around inclement weather days, you'll also see that that has changed. So the last day with 3 inclement weather days would be June 17th. If we don't have inclement weather days, the last day would be Monday the 14th for most students, Thursday the 10th. But we do anticipate, as has historically been the case, that there will be inclement weather days. So there isn't too much concern about that Monday being the last day of school. Again, this will now go out for 60 days of public comment. Board members will get that public comment. The calendar committee will get that public comment. Calendar committee will come back together. I apologize, I double clicked. They will come back together, go through that public comment, decide whether or not there's anything in there that needs to be adjusted again. And then I will come back on December 15th for the board to do the same, and then to vote on that final version of the calendar to move forward so we can have that approved per the board policy 8 months in advance of the next school year.
So with this new color, so the only difference is, well, can you explain for the public what the difference, and for the educators, the difference between professional development and planning days?
I can do my best. I also know that we have representatives from Ed Services who would never claim to know better than they do. The pink professional development days may be county-led. They may be things like from curriculum instruction and assessment versus the goldenrod days, which would be truly for the teachers to utilize as planning and for their desired purpose.
And is this the first calendar that we've embedded those golden days?
Correct. To my knowledge, I've been here, I've been
Well,
in
I
this
think
position 10 years doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
so.
good because this is something that we hear all the time from educators, that they need more time to themselves. You know, and not necessarily PD shoved down their throat. Question though, these 2 dates so last year, I think, or this year, we had 2 days for parent-teacher conferences, right? Is that the 9th and the 10th of November?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Are
I
you
was just
going
going to
to-
coughing. No.
So I would like to ask what the rationale is for keeping the start date post Labor Day instead of pre. And my main argument kind of towards that is
It's pre.
It is pre.
or sorry, not necessarily pre and post, but farther before Labor Day instead of after, because my main concern regarding that is AP testing. With that being at the same time for everybody, some of the metrics, and I don't have them up, I couldn't find them in a split second, but for some of the school districts that start before Labor Day, like well before Labor Day, you see those scores increased because, you know, across the U.S., we all take the AP testing all at the same time. And I think that we're kind of limiting our students in a sense to the amount of material that they can consume, you know, over the course of the school year before that mid-May-ish test date for the AP testing. So if you could just provide me some context on that, please.
There's lots of conversation around that. We have a very robust conversation around that every calendar committee. So that is something that, as you can hear from the laughter, anyone who's been present knows that is a very hot topic for members of the committee. We had conversations around starting earlier in August. That is something that we can absolutely still change that, you know, up until December 15th, anything can be on the table. And that's the nice thing about that 60 days of public comment. And then the board can take that information and choose to do with that what they will. We have had board committee members share a lot of data around the need to start earlier. I would encourage you, Trey, if that's something you're interested in, and I know you just mentioned not having it at your fingertips, but reach out to one of our principals, Mr. Redmond. He was the one that provided some details about that to a committee in a prior year. And of course, I would also suggest speaking with Ms. Hahn, because she also has shared feedback on that from the opposite viewpoint. And I always start our committee meetings off saying it's the calendar. And so we will never make everyone happy. We will never be able to give everyone what they want. But it's great to have that conversation and understand the arguments for both sides.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll be sure to reach out.
I did have one suggestion. It's pretty minor. So the quarters that are highlighted in yellow, that the third and fourth quarter, that maybe you outline those days because they are like early dismissal, so they don't have any yellow content to them. So just maybe
The 6th of November is the end of the first quarter. And then
the
you
third
have
and fourth don't have.
January 27th is the end of the second quarter. And then April 9th is the end of the third quarter. And that does not have yellow. And yes, I feel as though the color coordinated can be challenging, but it's very difficult to find another way to put everything
If you could
out there.
highlight the borders in yellow.
I will
then
try
it-
my
then that
best,
would-
Ms. Alvarez.
That would show that you have both things going on. That's
I
all.
will absolutely
Yeah.
try my best. Because actually, I'm glad you said that, because the last day of school will also be an early dismissal, whatever day it lands on.
And that one is not highlighted
That one you
as well.
can't tell either that it's an early dismissal.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that.
I just think, I like that the quarters are highlighted because it really kind of shows the blocks of time that the students are,
Absolutely.
being graded. Anyway, just.
I just have a question. The goldenrod color, teachers do not have to utilize those days. Like, I see that the 31st of August, which is Labor Day, is highlighted.
The 7th of September is Labor Day.
Oh, yeah, okay, duh, sorry.
It's the 7th.
Yeah, okay.
So you'll
I was
have- you'll
thinking
have-
that was the
Yeah, you'll
Labor
have 4
Day.
days.
closed
4
on
days
the
is
Okay.
7th.
for Labor Day.
Yeah, I thought, that's why, okay. Thank you.
I have a few things that, I don't envy your position because it is truly listening to a lot of people and getting a lot of feedback, but I'll give you my feedback. Veterans Day is a half day. You know, I'm passionate about that. I believe it should be a full day off. I think we should also, as a board, consider just doing every federal holiday off, right? Something to think about. One of the questions I do have, are student and teachers have the same last day? Don't teachers normally go a day after?
When did that end? I don't think they go a day after in this year's. I feel like this one's.
Last year they did.
Don't you need a
but
date? But
But
just a question mark.
It's not a requirement, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they get their 190, I think.
Correct.
Also noticed that the end of a quarter is right in the middle on a Wednesday. I don't know if there's a thought process in moving it to a Friday. I believe all the other ones are on a Friday. And then as I would just ask the community, as you give feedback on this calendar, do you prefer a longer spring break or getting out of school earlier? I think that's a question. And because I noticed that we have the 26th, maybe we don't need the 26th off and you get out of school a day earlier of March.
That's Good Friday.
And do we have to
That
have
one we
good-
have to
okay, I
close
thought
for.
we had to have the Monday. I wasn't sure about the Friday.
That too, yes.
So those are my comments, just things to think about.
Wait, so spring break's like 14 days? Start
Well,
planning.
it starts on the 25th.
25th.
25th for
1, 2,
students.
3, 4,
12 days.
10, 12.
Yeah, so
So book your flights now.
I would prefer getting out of school earlier, but that to me is good community feedback.
Well, our hands are tied a little bit with the Friday, Monday thing too, right? So, I mean, that
I would just to concur with Veterans Day being a full day as well.
okay, well then find another day that you want to.
So I think as we look at, like, talking about all federal holidays off and such, that's going to be a lot more days off that we need to consider starting sooner in August then, because you aren't going to want to go till the end of June. So, I mean, if that's a goal of yours, to have every federal holiday off, which will include things like President's Day and I guess whether you call it Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples' Day, I don't know what the exact term is, the correct term is for the federal holiday. But if you start talking about adding those days in, then you're going to need to start talking about either starting in the middle of August or going till the end of June.
Well, because
We have a good number of them already, right? So we have the January one, we have the February. We do a good number of them already. Just think we should look at Veterans Day.
Well, besides Veterans Day, there probably are a couple others, right, that aren't on
I
here.
don't see Columbus Day off, honestly. I just
probably
don't.
the other one.
We follow the holidays that are listed in Comar that we have to be closed and also in the negotiated agreements
Okay.
for some of the reasons that have just been shared. Once we start adding more holidays, it will extend the school year.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we kind of went with the first Tuesday in September as a start date was because we had a lot of parents say that they wanted a consistent day so that they kind of knew what to expect when to go back to school instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between before Labor Day, after Labor Day start. So we had kind of discussed it as a board at our, I think it was the last calendar meeting?
Last year. Mhm.
Yeah, so we all kind of agreed that that first Tuesday in September would be a good day, I guess, to kind of go by.
That did seem as though it was the ultimate reasoning for that conversation. To Trey's conversation, there's also the testing piece to starting earlier. Like I said, it's always, you have an argument for every point. There's a
Right.
counterpoint for every point when it
Are the academics
comes to the
most
calendar.
important or the vacations? I mean, you have to make that decision.
Well, there's definitely a lot to consider. You're never going to make everyone happy, and the calendar changes every year because the dates change every year. But all things considered, I think this is a great calendar. So it's got my support, but let's see what the public says. We've got 60 days, so it'll go open today. That means we're voting on it probably in, December, depending on what the,
The December 15th meeting, I will
15th,
be back
okay.
in front of you. And prior to that, the calendar committee gets back together as well, right before the Thanksgiving break.
okay. So board members, if you have suggestions on, Veterans Day or whatever, you have to look also and figure out what other day you may want to move or change. Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along here, we're going to end with the superintendent's report. Dr. Bolson.
All right, thank you. We covered a lot of ground tonight, and I know there's been a lot going on. I want to take just a few minutes. I know everyone touched on some of these things. So I had the opportunity to spend last week with approximately 25 superintendents, experienced, talented superintendents from across the country. And I've been working with this group for a little over a year now. And one of the things that's so striking about spending time with them is not the huge quantity of innovations that they've had happen in their school systems, but also just how incredibly similar the challenges we all face are. One of us can start telling a story and the other one can finish telling it. So many different things. Last year, before the first time I met with them, I arrived to the group in the second week of September. And if you remember the first week of September last year, I walked into a room and I shared what had just happened, the horrible tragedy we'd experienced at Joppatown. And between a third and a half of the superintendents in the room had experienced the same thing. And so on the one hand, having people like that around me who, I could lean on for support was an encouraging thing. It's nice to have those professional circles to be able to do that. But on the other hand, I recall it being just so amazingly striking how pervasive this type of tragedy is. So I was on the road Thursday afternoon. In fact, I was stuck in traffic in Delaware on my way to meet with this group of colleagues again. And I received a call from Dr. Davis, and then, a number of calls after that with updates about just the horrible tragedy. Harford County experienced. And before I say more about that, I also want to extend my condolences to the family, to the entire C. Milton Wright community, but also to everyone who was affected by this. I can't help but thinking about our bus drivers and everyone who has to get up and do this amazing work every day. But with that, we experienced, collectively and for some people very acutely on Thursday, it came on the heels of two other things here in Harford County. One was the bullying incident that we experienced and investigated at Harford Tech that's had such a big impact on so many of our students. And I can only say that there's so much more we need to do to ensure that never happens. And I certainly have some thoughts moving forward about how we will continue to confront this. But it's just one of those things that really affects a whole community. And then, of course, the tragedy that the nation experienced with the death of Charlie Kirk. And it's been very hard to think about how to approach this conversation, because what's become increasingly evident is that regardless of which side someone is on in the conversation about him, what's completely evident is that people on both sides, and almost everyone on both sides, is hurting. And it's coming out in so many different ways. And we need to come up with ways to heal from that. And I'm not entirely sure how we do that as a community or as a school system. Because as the rhetoric coming from both sides continues, it just continues to exacerbate it. And frankly, and we engage in a little too much of this here in this particular setting, in this room, but we're not going to be able to threaten each other or criticize each other as a means of, encouraging them to do better. Individually, we have to start, and individually, we have to do better. Because I haven't seen a lot of success emerge from trying to tell others how to do better. But we keep trying. Now, today, I recorded this month's monthly minute, which is something I do every month, and it's a brief message, a few minutes at the most, that goes out to our staff primarily, and I think we usually copy it in the board update that you guys get, so you can see it. But it's aimed at staff. It's a message for staff, and so I want to flip a little bit to what we talked about there, because with everything that's gone on through what's beginning to feel like a very, very long month of September, there's one image that someone shared with me from this weekend where our Edgewood High School football players and our Harford Tech High School football players came together at the middle of the field. And, they may not be political opponents, but they're definitely opponents. But they understood the humanity and the importance of coming together like that. And so I appreciate them for leading the way. I'm sure there was some student leadership in that, but also there was some adults helping make that happen too. And I appreciate anyone who encouraged our folks to, do the right thing, send the right message, and help our students show a strong, unified, but productive face. And this, of course, all comes on the heels. I can celebrate that moment for just a second. And I've been to many schools. I talked about that in my last meeting, and I've seen some amazing big things and amazing little things that are going on. The beginnings of some really kind of creative things happening in middle schools as they're working on project-based learning, but also the excitement of finding a new way to do things to keep our students engaged. On a trip around Falston High School, walking around with Mr. Collins, I was introduced to the spa specialist from the school who spent the summer putting together binders so that every single teacher had data on every single student with special needs that helped those teachers know how to better serve their students. And it looked like a tremendous amount of work, but also a resource that I think would make a big difference. So just seeing that type of extra work going into doing something important for kids. I had a fun moment, and I think there was more behind this. I was at Youth Benefit, and I walked into the cafeteria, and a lot of kindergartners were playing rock, paper, scissors. I'm sure there was a lesson about this. They were engaging with each other for sure, and it was kind of fun to watch. But the funniest thing is I found these two young men who I asked them what was going on, and they explained, well, we're playing this game and we learned it, but we have different rules because we have blasters and lightsabers and black holes and chainsaws in our version, and they had different hand gestures for each of those things. So I'm sure those guys are going far. Bakerfield Elementary, the teacher had the students writing their hopes and dreams on balloons. And they were going to send those balloons. They weren't helium balloons, so they weren't going far and polluting our country. But the idea was they wanted to let those hopes and dreams take flight, and that was a place that it could happen in their classroom. And then I also heard the principal of Hartford Tech shared with me that they'd had students come in, I believe seniors come in during pre-service week, because Hartford Tech is under construction, and teachers couldn't get in there before the first day of pre-service. And so the seniors came in and did the bulletin boards for the teachers, which, again, a small thing, but it makes a difference, particularly when you go to some of our schools, you see how much work goes into those bulletin boards. It's not a small thing that the teachers do. I mean, we might take it for granted, and I think maybe some of our seniors have a better sense of how much work goes into those sorts of things. And so, again, seeing some of the good things happening. I mentioned last time that all 10 of our high schools will have the formal Educators Rising program, which is a program for aspiring teachers. And thanks to a grant from PDK, which is a company that runs Ed Rising. But one of the things is I see that linking to what we heard about tonight from Dr. Davis. For me, I'm looking at the experiences students have while in school, and our first efforts are to enlist and engage as many mentors as we possibly can and bring this community in to support our students. We have support in a million different ways, but to do that. But over time, I see this also evolving to include, our older students mentoring younger students. And I hope through that, as that evolves, that we're able to maybe identify some more students who we might encourage into the career of teaching. And so just so many amazing connections going through a great deal of work here. So despite this month, which brought tragedy and pain on so many fronts, one great thing about schools is you can walk in and you can see the students, and if there's any doubt, try, actually, Mr. Cook at Homestead Wakefield today said, it's kind of like we throw a birthday party for 1,100 kids in our cafeteria every day. There's a lot of energy in that room. It's a lot to manage, and that's a lot of kids in one space. But if you ever need a little lift, go volunteer for lunch duty. You'll have to open some milk cartons, but otherwise, you'll have a great time. So with that, one last reminder, Trey mentioned this earlier, please don't forget to sign up for the HCRAS 5K on October 18th. I had a chance to do this, I think, last year. I recall coming in sort of toward the end, but it was a good experience.
Don't worry, we got pictures.
I recall. So anyway, thank you all. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Bolson. The next board meeting will be on Monday, October 6th, 2025 at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.